Welcome to WTF. I am Aubin Elise, the author of The Second Nature of Indigo.
I am Mariella May, Ella here, working on a duology right now that will be coming out soon.
And we are sisters,
Yeah.
and we write, edit, mutually inspire one another, and we're going on
Discuss
a
books.
publishing, and we discuss book.
Yeah.
So
today we are talking about do's and don'ts in romance.
So
This is probably something that a lot of people are wondering, and it's also,
I wondered.
I'm going to disclaim,
recently.
it's not universal.
Yeah.
With any writing rule, you can break these
Yeah.
and make it cool. These are just the things we find
most
best
helpful
and worst.
general guidelines.
Yeah. Yeah. As
Yeah.
always, our guidelines here are general, not...
And our opinion.
Okay. Should we just get into it?
Yeah. Hold on. I do want to say, so in my first book, there is not a ton of romance.
Mm-hmm.
Ella's book is a lot more,
Lot
like,
more
so
romantic.
much more. Looking back, reading through, we're editing her book right now intensively. And,
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's so funny
It's-
for me to get to read it again.
I would consider my book to be a romance, a fantasy. I wouldn't say it's like a romantasy,
Yeah.
because
It's not,
I don't really read a lot in that genre, and it's not really the vibe, but I would also say it's a tragedy,
yeah,
especially the first one.
yeah.
So,
But my second book
is much more
basically, but you see, romance is such a normal qualifying category, but you see, inside of it, there
are
are
a lot.
8 billion worlds.
Which is another reason why these are guidelines. There's a lot of types of romance.
Yeah. So basically, this is just our disclaimer. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Alrighty. So, should we start with the do's?
Or the don'ts. Let's go back and forth.
Okay, so our first do is make both main characters relatable
Or likable.
or likable.
I have a big problem when one of them is just
The male character
You-
or the female character, and it's
you
just, like,
don't.
they're hot.
They're not really that interesting. They're not. That I guess this points to a later point. Is that one of them? Let them. Well, anyway, one of our points is why them? Why these two people? Like, there are a lot of people in this world. There are a lot of people in your stories, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's
why
weird
them?
if you have, say, a love triangle, and then there's one who's just mean to the main character and pretty much everyone else, and then one who's, like, a genuinely nice person, and then they just pick the mean person. Like,
Because they're more hot.
they're more hot. I get it, okay? Hotness is very important. But also, a hot jerk is still a jerk.
True.
So, either give them an arc or a reason, or have them be a person
Mm-hmm.
through their rudeness. Why are they rude? Will they keep being rude? How are they rude? There's a
Who-
lot of different types.
To whom
of
are they rude? Like,
Yeah.
why?
Are they rude to
whom,
themselves?
right?
Are they rude to other people? Are they
Mhm.
rude to everyone? Are they rude to only the main character or only not the main character?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, darn it, I had a thought. What was it? Oh, yes! And I think the timeline for which characters have to fall in love is very different depending on who they are.
yeah.
Not everything has to happen really quickly.
One of
I
our
think,
favorite
yeah,
series is Mirror Visitor. Takes them forever,
so long.
so long.
And yet it's always interesting.
it's always
There's never a point in time where you're bored or you
And
don't believe in them. You always 100% are behind them. But
and it's never like
they're
oh,
slow movers. They are slow
It's
moving.
never like, oh, of course, like that wouldn't happen. Like that's just unnecessary. You're like,
Mhm.
dang it, here we go again. More obstacles.
Here I am once again. Yeah. Make both relatable. Make both have personal obstacles to overcome. Another great example is Mirror
I thought we
Visitor.
were gonna switch.
Wait, what?
back and
Oh,
forth.
right. Sorry.
We'll get back.
This
to
one was Ella's.
Oh yes, do not use tropes as,
As
crutches.
crutches.
I see this as a really annoying problem. Again, going back to like Sunshine X Grumpy, they're just mean, and that's okay because the other person's sunshine. It's not okay. It's just an abusive relationship at that point. Like, don't be like, oh, you know, of course they fall in love because it's enemies to lovers. Do they just genuinely hate each other and not agree with any of the other person's morals? Yes.
I have a note about enemies to lovers later.
Yeah, so tropes are awesome and lovely, and like there's a
And
reason
just
why
naturally
they're-
happen.
Yeah,
Like,
there's a reason
you
they're
start writing a
tropes.
story, oops, it fell into a trope. That's what happens to me all the time. Because it's fun.
Like,
And it's sometimes what actually happens in real life.
Another thing I'm going to point out is that just because it is like popular or it's like cool does not mean it will fit you.
Yeah.
So, you know, back in like I guess the 2010s, early 2010s, like everyone was writing dystopian because it was like cool and popular.
Oh.
Blah blah blah. And
Oh,
now
that makes sense.
everyone's writing romantasy because it's cool and popular and blah blah blah. I know I'm saying this as someone who's writing a technically romantasy. But I didn't write it because it was popular, and I don't think that you should ever be like, oh, well, I want to write a book, but I'm not really into fantasy, but that's kind of what is popular right now, so I
Yeah.
guess I'll just write a fantasy. Like, don't force yourself to use the popular tropes. If you don't like Grumpy Egg Sunshine, don't use it.
I love Grumpy Egg Sunshine.
Some
One of my
people
favorite
don't.
memes ever is, it's like, oh, what is it? It's the reader. It's like, this is dumb. We're not gonna enjoy this anymore. The authors. The grumpy one falls in love with the sunshiny one. Readers, yes. That is.
I mean,
me.
yeah, if you like that trope, which I mean, you know,
It's
I also
great.
like it. It's great. I mean, I kind of like complicated
But
excomplicated.
here's the thing. It doesn't matter how much you like the trope if the characters
Are not.
are paper.
Yeah.
It does. Two paper dolls falling in love.
Is
Even
kinda
paper
boring.
dolls are sometimes better than some of the
Yeah.
protagonists.
Alrighty.
Anyway, if it's not
alive.
alive, then the story's never going to work.
Mm-hmm. You're the one you were gonna say earlier.
Make both have personal obstacles to overcome. A big example is Thorn and Ophelia. It's like
From
Thorn
years
has a
ago.
lot of issues,
and Ophelia has some issues.
Ophelia has
Less.
less issues. It's mainly problems thrown at her.
No, I feel like she also has to overcome her like shyness and her.
That's true.
fear and
That's
her,
true. I forgot
like-
how shy she starts out.
She almost has to overcome like her overly passive nature. Like, but the great thing is she never becomes less Ophelia. It's like
No.
she still is not
Yeah.
gonna go out and fight people. She still is not gonna like
Yeah, no. She doesn't become an assassin. She becomes
more Ophelia.
yes, exactly.
And it's done beautifully. If you haven't read Me, Your Visitor, go read it. It's so good.
It's one of our top recommendations in our Books That Shaped Us as Writers video.
That is true.
Which you can find now, hopefully at the top of the screen. So yesterday I was thinking about this and what makes a good romantic story. And because I was listening to the second book of Stalking Jack the Ripper. And I started writing it down and I was like, what happens first? Like, what are the key events in all major romantic stories? The noticing. It might not be your first meeting, but the first time you
Are attracted.
see them.
Or
No,
not even
not
just
attracted to
attracted.
them. Well, the first time you notice them.
Yeah.
What is your first, not impression, but your first,
Taste.
yeah, how does the
What is
noticing
this
happen? And then
foundation?
the impression. And the impression and the noticing can happen at the same time, I think. But sometimes you just see someone off in the distance and you're like, oh, that's interesting. And then later, I would say the first impression is when maybe their first face-to-face talk, or you hear them talking to someone else, and that would be maybe your first impression. And these can't happen at the same time. So noticing, impression, and then first seeing the person as they actually are.
Mm-hmm.
And those three things.
I think
Kind
that
of begin-
that one, the third one, can be slow.
Yes, no, I think,
think that
there's
it can-
there might be a small gap between the noticing and the impression, but then between the impression and the seeing them as who they truly are is usually a lot longer.
Yeah.
And then hold
and
on.
it can be like just a genuinely slow reveal. Like they
Yes.
progress into seeing them.
Yeah. And then as I was writing, I was like, wait, the steps repeat. First there's the noticing as an acquaintance, and then there's the impression or guesswork. I think later it was the impression or the cementing of them in your mind as an acquaintance. And then there's the meeting of them as an acquaintance. And then there's the noticing of them as a friend, the accepting of them as a friend, and then the meeting of them as who they truly are as your friend.
Or whatever the second step is.
Or whatever the second step is. It could be a colleague or whatever. And sometimes I feel like the friend and lover thing kind of gets laid on top of each other, but then the noticing and the impression and the meeting happen again as a lover.
That's so interesting.
Because, like first you become friends and then there's the noticing again, but as as someone. It's like, oh, I just noticed like this thing about you that is
it's so
attractive to me, not as a friend.
As I'm running back, I can see it in my book.
You see those in your book, exactly. Yeah. So first there are 3 noticings, and then 3 impressions or fermenting or cementing of them as that person. And then usually
I think that in the second part, it can also be a fermenting or impression of something that they are not, but you believe it strongly.
Yes. That's what I was just about to say. It's like the difference between the impression and the seeing is usually where we get a lot of drama. So it's like, I believe you're this thing. And then it's like, in a moment of honesty, you're like, I was completely wrong about you. And that makes really me so powerful. Intrigued and so happy, and it makes you fascinating. So those are my steps to falling in love. There you go.
Guys.
Okay. Rely on your character being hot. I feel like we already touched on that one.
It's like,
don't do it.
Don't make them paper. Okay. I wanna meet your character. I wanna be with your character, and I want something that I heard the book Leo point out that I really like is you as a reader don't need to fall in love with the love interest, but you need to understand why the main character did.
Okay, that's interesting.
Again, because I love it so much, I'm going to bring up
Mirror Visitor.
Wow. I personally would not like Thorn, okay?
Thorn is very not Ella's type.
But not my type whatsoever. But I ship him and Ophelia so hard. So hard.
They just deserve to be together.
Not my type, but I love it. Mm-hmm. So don't make your character the easiest character to fall in love with.
Ooh, that's a much better point than,
It's like,
maybe they're not the easiest to fall in love with, and then it has to be a journey and a character arc, and that's what we're all here for.
Yeah, like, we don't want just an easy, you're hot, I'm hot.
I mean, there are books like that, and you can go and enjoy them. No judgment. But, like, what we're writing is maybe not, like, my 2 characters are, like, the least easy to fall in love.
In her second book, not
in my first one. It's like, they are designed to be hard to fall in love with. Illustrate their similarities and differences.
Yes.
As characters, both together and separately. Mm-hmm. And I would say, what's a good example? Thorn and Ophelia have a ton of differences. Not a ton of similarities, except for their morals. They're very much like the truth is important to us. And intelligence, yes.
And the way that they think about things.
They're both very respectful to people. They're just respectful in different ways.
And they're both very smart.
They're both smart.
And they're both very calm, I would say.
Oh, yeah. So, like, super calm.
But they're also calm in different ways.
A different example, not to use Mirror Visitor again, would be Burn Notice, the show from the 2000
show. It's as old as I am.
Yes. It's older. Like it's a great show. Just go watch a clip of it and come back. So Fiona is this, like, hot-headed, just
trigger happy
ex-girlfriend. We're just quoting the beginning of the intro. And he's a spy who's just way more level-headed. Usually likes to plan things out. He's
smart
not
spy who's just like,
yes,
you don't need to go in.
She's very much like, she's much more forward. She's just like, let's go.
So what is this?
What is this? And he's like, can we not talk about it
right now?
Ever?
I'm kind of busy. And then when he's not busy, he's like, wow, look at the time.
But we still ship them anyway.
Yeah, and also they have a lot of growth.
A lot of growth and some similarities as well. Yeah. They both want to do the right thing, although they have different ideas about how you get to doing the right thing.
And what is the right thing.
And what is the right thing sometimes. But they also have a lot of shared knowledge. Anyway, so emphasize similarities and differences. Burn Notice, in my opinion, is a good example.
Yeah.
And then the next one is have different levels of conflict.
Yeah. Yeah, so if all of your fights between the characters, and I think that there should be fights or at least tension and disagreements.
Yeah.
Because, first of all,
when do 2 people agree on everything? Ever. Never.
And if they never deal with it, then
that's unhealthy.
So I think that they should have disagreements, and I think it's a really big problem when they just kind of either passive-aggressive everything and just ignore it, but also don't ignore it, obviously, or they just, like, explode into fights all the time, or they're just, like, solidly neutral about everything, even if it's, like, their most touchy subject ever, and they're just like, yeah, I just didn't really like how you did bloody da, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry. It's like, yes, it very affects my tragic backstory. Like, that would be a bigger thing for them.
Yeah.
If everything that your character cares about, they care about the exact same amount.
Yeah, that's not realistic.
It feels like a very flat character.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Give them, and also, like, something that one person is really passionate about, the other person could not be passionate about. Be like, oh, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Or they could both be really passionate about it. I just want to see, like, in whatever you're creating, how they bounce off each other and how they fit together. Like, it's lovely if they're... No, it's not lovely if they never have, like, deep conversations. Because you're never going to get anywhere if, like, nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
They're people, and, like, they have peopleness.
In my next book, it's like they have different ways of approaching how they move on with their lives.
And how they deal with
what has happened to them. And in a lot of ways, that's conflicting.
But they also kind of do it in a bit of similar way.
Yes, it's funny how we sometimes think we're so opposite, but then we fall into the exact same mistakes we see in other people.
It's like, wow, I would never do that. Proceeds to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I just found another one of those. She's like, just tell the truth. And then
just proceeds to not tell the truth.
I didn't tell you the truth. But not in like a dorky, oh no, I didn't tell you the secret of my backstory. Not that way.
It's like...
It's more nuanced than that.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get into that because that would be too spoilery. No, so what I've thought of when you said different levels of conflict, there can be plot conflict, and then there's interpersonal conflict, and then there's personal conflict. Your conflict with yourself influences your conflict with the people around you, influences the conflict with the world. So that's what I thought you meant. But let's move on to the next point. Okay, don't put all of the fault or character arc on one person.
Yes.
Like, I was just reading this book, and it was 2 characters, and one of them is, like, the writer wants you to believe that they are pretty much flawless. Like, they're just someone who you totally agree with on pretty much everything. She's very good at pressing the normal buttons. And then this other character just makes her mad. And he is always at fault. And it's always his fault. And
it's a him problem.
It's a him problem. And she just doesn't look at herself and realizes that she also has problems, which is just really annoying.
Which makes it annoying to the reader, because it's like,
because then we don't even want them to be together. It's like, well...
If
you just don't appreciate him, and then he is trying his best to learn, and you are completely stagnant as a person. He deserves better than you.
Yeah, so that's, like, a big point. It's like, okay, sure, you want a character that's just great. Let them get there, okay?
Yes.
I want to see them get there. Because right now, if you just give me, like, a character and you're like, they're perfect, I'm going to be like, how?
Jason Grace. Sorry. Not sorry. I'm not. Anyway.
Yes, I want to, like, you hand me a lovely character. I want to see how they got there. Sure, they're, like, whatever lovely backstory you gave them. I don't get the context for that, okay? You can give me the greatest backstory, and you can give me the most tragic backstory. If I never see it, it won't matter to me. Like, I think a great... actually breaking of that rule is in the second book of Carval. And I don't know pretty much anything about his backstory. And I know vague stuff. I know impressions. I know vibes. And it's done well, okay? It's done in a very painterly, abstract way, but I can see the colors on the canvas. I don't know how it looks, but I know what it feels like.
What's funny is that you're going to get bits and pieces of that moving forward.
Yeah, I sense it.
You sense it?
It's
you
starting.
Sense it coming?
It's starting. And I think it's lovely. Like, again, rules here, made to be broken. If you can, please do it.
Yeah.
Because I love to see it when it's done.
Yeah.
But what we're saying is don't do it poorly. Like, I mean, tropes. We love seeing tropes, but don't use them as crutches.
Yeah. We are going to do another video probably at some point about more tips about romance in general or writing in general. We already have some videos up. You can go to our writing advice playlist on our channel, and we also do chats about books.
Yeah.
So
if you want to hear us talk about other books than Mirror
other
Visitor,
books than Mirror Visitor, we actually do talk about other books.
Yeah.
Then you can also find that at our
We
channel.
do book tea every Friday, so
Yeah.
we have a couple already up. So
So, yeah. And our posting schedule is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, which is why it's called
WTF.
WTF. And so, yeah, we look forward to seeing you soon.
tomorrow if
Tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.